It mentioned that the black male unemployment rate from 2007 to 2008 went from 9.3% to 18.7% in that 1 year. Black male, and I was like, and it wasn't a big story. This wasn't even, it wasn't a front page story. It was sort of like, you know, just one of those factoids that someone, and then I said, it can't be true. I said, that can't be true. Those numbers can't be true. You can't tell me we had a doubling in a year of black male unemployment in New York City, and nobody thinks this is a crisis, and nobody is saying, oh my goodness, we all have to rally, the governor, the mayor, the president, we have to do something. No, no. There are a set of issues which people tend to think, well, you know what, not my issue, got my own problems, not dealing with that problem. How we look at race, how worried people are facing race, something else this organization does, it tries to pull the covers off some of this stuff. One says, why is the case? I don't think somebody's going out saying, you know, we're going to fire every black male we can find, but the facts are what the facts are. Someone ought to be looking at this. So we decided, you know, that we were going to try and figure out how to save our children in Harlem. And, you know, one of the things I kept thinking, every major politician I know says the children are our future, right? And they say that. And people, they wear the flags. And they do. But if you really believe children are our future, right, then you would act like you're preparing for the future by doing major investments that support children, right? Housing, health care, all those kind of basic things. I'm not talking about anything fancy, right? I'm just talking about regular stuff. And yet the same people who are always yelling about children are our future seem to be always saying, but we can't afford to do this for them. And you know, America's not number one. If you look at the standings, reading and math, we're not number one, we're not number two, we're not number three. We are barely in the top 10. And it's getting worse because other countries have figured out the future is about the investment you make in your children. This is no longer a struggle internationally about how much cobalt we have in the ground, about how much aluminum we can pull out of the earth. This is about how many PhDs, how many engineers, how many doctors, how many business people can you create. And we are getting our clock cleaned because there are nations making huge investments in their infrastructure. Huge. You people who go on to China and India, they are outproducing us. And if you think I'm kidding, you go to any Ivy League college, university, look in the PhD programs in math and science. See if you can spot an American. Just see if you can spot an American. If you want to know how far we are behind, you just simply look around and see what's happening. How is it this huge country is falling so far behind? And I kept thinking, look, if this keeps going the way it is, we can't stay a first-rate country. The only thing we're first in right now is producing like weapons and stuff like that. I mean, we're losing in every other area. And I said, well, someone has to know. You know, I said, look, they really knowing there's a plan, right? They're not going to let America just fail, right? They wouldn't do that. There's a plan. It's just the people who have the plan. It's kind of like a secret and it's above my pay grade, right? You know, I figured, you know, look, I always believe there are a group of people planning and, you know, they don't tell the rest of us what's going on. We just sort of read about it. I grew up in the 60s. I can't help myself around conspiracies, right? So, but this is what's happened. Over the years, I've met a few presidents, a few secretaries of education, a few secretaries of labor, directors of domestic policy. There is no plan. There is no plan. In fact, when I meet them, they get me a sign. They say, Jeff, what do you think we ought to do? I said, why are you asking me? You're running the country. You don't know? They don't know. No one's coming. No one's going to save Seattle's children unless you do it. No one's going to take care of the poor in this city unless you do it. There is no other plan. And I wish I could say, look, you know, just hang in there. Help's coming. Help is not coming. Indeed, as bad as things are, they're actually going to get worse. And the question is, who's going to stand up for the poor? Who's going to stand up and say, we draw a line? See, that's what we did in Harlem. We drew a line around 97 blocks, around 10,000 children. And we said, no matter what happens, we're going to protect these kids. We can't do all of Harlem. We can't do all of New York City. Someone else will have to do that. But we know what our mission is and the group we're going to save, and that's our mission. And I've told all those parents, we're going to make sure your children succeed. The question is, as things get worse, and they will, next year or two, who's going to draw the line? Where's the line going to be drawn? Are we going to allow this wonderful city to end up like, I've been in some cities recently, I won't mention them. They never drew a line. People basically threw the towel in. Whole city. Don't have a plan, don't know what to do. They just know the city is not working. And then everybody decided we better get out of here. There were choices to be made. They weren't made. Each one of those cities thought somebody was coming. No one's coming. This falls down to the individuals who live in our communities to step up. And I wish there was another way of doing it. I tell them, if someone knows another way, please let me know, right? Because I spent a long time in this field, and we decided for us, right, in our 97 blocks, we were going to do 4 big things. The first was rebuild a sense of community. This has to do with how the adults are organized. Who's going out and talking to people, setting up block associations, tenant associations, giving leadership so that the adults can take responsibility in making the community safer for young people. That, we think, is critical. The second thing is we've just set up what we call a pipeline of best practice programs. Best practice meaning there's some science behind why we think these programs work, if they're faithfully followed. And we start at birth and we stay with families through college. And our goal is to get our young people through college. People, this is one of those areas that I get a lot of heat around the country about saying through college. Hey, Jeff, what about vocational schools? And are you putting down sort of other No, I'm not putting them down. And those are terrific, but that's not what our goal is. Our goal is to prepare our kids for college. And they say, well, why are you so discriminating against? I say, I'm not. Here's a basic belief I have about working with people. You treat people the way you would treat your own family. So I don't know anybody with a college degree or with money who aspires for anything other for their children than to go to college. I have yet to meet somebody whose child is 10 and say, yeah, look, I know we went to college, but Dorothy, nah, we don't think she's college material, right? She's 10, we're throwing it in on her. We're thinking about hairdresser for her, right? That's something she could do. I mean, I've never met, in my whole life, I've never seen it one time. Now, I've met people whose children are 17 and they are desperately worried that the kid is not interested in college. And they're doing everything possible to get them interested. I've seen that. But I don't know anybody who aspires to anything less for their children. And my theory is, this is the problem. If there's a track A and track B, human nature, my nature, these are not bad people. They're not evil. Human nature is we think we know who fits what track. You just can't happen. As soon as you get 2 tracks, you look at a group of kids, you say, oh, but you need this other track. I could tell this is going to be good for you. This other track. There's only one track. The adults have to get everybody on that track. Then, look, if they decide after they can go to college, they don't want to, that's fine. I have no problem. I tell people I have 4 kids. 3 of them are grown. 2 of them went to college. 3rd one, it's like, no thank you, right? Nothing we could do about that. It was his choice. That's just how life is. That's fine, but it wasn't because we had any other expectation or preparation for that child. So we believe you get these pipelines going, you stay with the families, right, so that there's support. The third thing we think is you got to deal with scale. In the end, we've got to figure out what's the size of the problem.